All right, guys, I just want to do a little warm-up project before we get started.
Is it a shot?
It's not a shot. Don't do shots.
Well, we were talking about how we're way funnier in the second half because we've been drinking for a little bit.
That's true. We could just get drunk
should pregame the
beforehand.
podcast.
We should pregame. Ideas for improving the podcast. This is what our business meetings sound like, everybody.
Here's what we could do. Just get drunk all the time. Be drunk constantly.
Chris is playing for the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 96 of the Game Brew Podcast, the bi-weekly video game podcast where we sip delicious beers, discuss video games, and Dan forgot to put new text here.
Oh, shit, I did.
I am your host, Ian Cranberry Sauce Richard, and today I am joined by Chris Stuffing Rights.
I would argue that my mother's stuffing is the best on earth.
Everybody.
Dan Green Bean Casserole Rots.
I mean, I'm good for you, but I've also got that kind of stuff
Those
that's
fried
bad
onions,
for you,
man.
too.
And Allison Mashed Potatoes Van Dievender.
I am so bland.
What? I made
Everyone
you
wants you.
because you're the best side and
Everyone
wants
wants
you.
you.
Everybody loves mashed
Yeah.
potatoes.
I find mashed potatoes to be quite bland.
All right. On the first half
You
of
haven't
the
had
show,
good mashed potatoes.
we'll talk through games that are imposters, and in the second half, we'll talk about politics invading gaming. But first, it's time for a beer.
That was easy. That one came off easy.
Chris, what are we drinking this week?
Didn't have to.
Well,
grab
we were
this
supposed to be drinking Brooklyn Brown Ale because that's a good Thanksgiving beer, but it was a struggle
Yeah.
to get that for everyone. So I'm drinking Brooklyn Brown beer. I did find
You
it.
found
Brown
it?
beer?
The closest place to me that had it was in Jersey, and
not
I was
going
just
to
like,
Jersey.
Why didn't you sacrifice yourself?
well, I'll tell you why in a second after you tell me about.
So it's a solid brown ale. For a while I was super into brown ales. It's got a lot of
Brown.
that was
to
me
it?
drinking right there. It's got a lot of maltiness, which, that's kind of like the signature of a brown ale. It's a lot of malt. A little bit of burnt flavor. Not as much as like a stout or a porter, but it's got a lot of caramelly maltiness. It's good, though. It's good.
Ooh, chutzpah, one
Yeah.
might say.
Nice. Yeah, so I wasn't able to find the Brooklyn Brown, but there was a wonderful Northwest United States alternative, Pacific Northwest alternative from Big Sky Brewing called Moose Drool. And I was like, this is a funny name for a beer, but this is what it looks like. So maybe Moose Drool. It's brown. What's funny is I'm getting a lot of those similar, well, it's not funny, similar notes from Chris, like that little bit of toasted, which I love. I love brown ales. And also, yeah, not a lot of hoppiness, but just a ton of other flavor. Like it's like toast.
Yeah.
If you like toast, you like brown ales. And the funny thing is that it is super stinky on the nose. Like it smells
Smelly.
like bad moose breath. It's great.
Well,
I love it.
That's
Smelly
probably
moose
what they're
breath.
going for.
Smelly.
I know. Well, it's just surprising that it was
it's
that
just like,
stinky.
Ugh. But then it's good
Yeah.
and yummy.
It's fine.
I went a different. I got another Brooklyn beer because I couldn't find it. I went everywhere. I feel like last week I saw a bunch of brown ale in all my locations. Then this week there was just none.
Everyone's stocking
They
up
must
for Thanksgiving.
That's
Stocking
true.
up on those
Well, but the thing that I was thinking about is like I don't drink. I always drink like winter beers at Thanksgiving because they start releasing all of like the holiday stuff early. So that's why I grabbed Brooklyn's winter lager because I wanted to get something Brooklyn. But this is like what normally I would drink like winter lagers. During
So what does it taste?
Thanksgiving
Is it like
because
a almost a porter or
it's still lagery. So it's
toasty?
not.
Does it have some toastiness?
It's pretty dark. Like that's a really dark lager.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like a porter or black lager.
Yeah, it's really dark. Like it's really dark, but it's lighter on the flavor. Like whenever you drink it, it's not thick. You know,
It only has one C and not two. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's not thick with 9 Qs.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Do you like it though?
But it's still, yeah. Well, it's a good lager. It is a little bit toastier than like an average sort of lager you might drink. So a little bit more comforting, kind of what you look for around when it's starting to get colder. I'm wearing my hoodie right now because I'm cold.
Brooklyn makes a good beer.
Yeah.
They do.
So to get my beers here in the Pacific Northwest, I go to Total Wine and More. Do you guys know this place? Do you have Total Wines?
Yes, we do.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Yeah. It's in Delaware,
right,
but
so-
yeah.
We have multiple in Maryland.
You know
'cause
how
we're
it's
better than
COVID
Delaware.
outside too, so you don't want to be like close to other people or have other people like
Mm-hmm.
talking to or at you.
Yeah.
I went in this store and was assaulted by no less than 5 employees who were asking me if I could find anything. And I was like, yes, I can read. I can find the things in this store. Please, dear God, leave me alone. It was horrible. And then I got to the register and there was a line. There were 2 lines at the registers that were both completely choked with people. Like, what are you motherfuckers on the floor doing out here? Go do a cash register.
Well,
You hear that, Total Wine? Fucking be more efficient.
yeah, be more efficient. But that's kind of backwards. The reason that they're doing that is because they want to know, was like, we want to get you your stuff and then make you leave because you shouldn't be out here in the first place. Is like the general
Don't
kind
give
of
excuses.
consensus. But yeah, they should have more people
Absolutely.
on the registers, or at least try and move things faster. But
I mean,
anyway.
standing close to me right now is a good way to make me leave. So, good job, I guess, Total Wine. Anyway,
just to annoy you till you're gone. That's basically
what have you all
it.
been up to this week? Anything good?
Black Ops Cold
Blaps.
War came out, and I have been playing that, and I finished the campaign.
blah,
Blah,
blah.
blah, blah.
Nice. Is that a...
So that's a medium one, but but it was good. It was interesting because it kind of took the classic sort of Call of Duty Black Ops story, where it is a little bit more, less of like a war movie and more like an espionage sort of
Like super spies.
but it also added some like RPG sort of elements to it, where you can talk to, well, in like the broadest sense of role-playing game, because you pick your character, like when you start, you're like this CIA, some sort of agent from like the CIA, the KGB, or like the
Spies Inc.
MI5, like one of those
like
places.
Shark
But
Girl.
but you
I
get to
love a
like you
girl.
make your name, and then you pick personality traits that you have. So that gives you a specific perk over the campaign. Like one might be, oh, you always have extra ammo. One might be, oh, you aim down the sights a little bit faster. But it's like you. And then, you progress through the story and you can actually talk to your teammates, like just like see like, hey, what's up? What's your history with this person? And then the intel objectives, like the extra objectives that you find in maps, actually have a meaning. If you find enough of them, it gives you clues to open up an extra mission to play whenever you're doing it. So it's like you're not, and then you actually have to solve like the clues. Like it's like code breaking kind of stuff.
That's
It's pretty cool.
I can get into that.
It makes a lot. It wasn't the longest campaign in the world. I think maybe like 6 to 8 hours, maybe. But it was good. And also, I'm having a lot of fun playing multiplayer. Black Ops multiplayer is a lot more.
Has it
arcadey.
replaced
Warzone?
Warzone yet?
No.
No, because Warzone's the same. Like Warzone is still the Modern Warfare one. They didn't add a different Warzone to it.
So is any of none of that content from Black Ops is going to make its way into Warzone then?
I don't think so, because Warzone is kind of its own thing. There might be more guns, like they might add some different weapons to it, but I can't imagine that they would add anything, because Black Ops is like 1980s and that Modern Warfare is like future. I can't imagine them adding I can't imagine them adding some older weapons, but they've also kind of been doing that already.
COD universe is strange to me. I don't understand how the games connect. They're all like individual things for me.
Well, the Black Ops universe is kind of they have their own like little storylines. Yeah. Like Black Ops has its own, Modern Warfare has its own. They kind of overlap a little bit just because every once in a while there's like a person who might be doing something in one of the other worlds. But I could delve into it, but I'm not gonna, because I want to know what Allison's been playing.
I played a little Among Us. I played Phasmophobia. I played Dead by Daylight. I played League of Legends. Just the usuals. Nothing terribly interesting, actually.
How's the streaming coming along? I know you've been pushing hard on that lately, and it seems like it's going well.
Yeah. I mean, I have my schedule now, so I do it every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. And
Gee, what times?
Usually 8 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Chris.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I like the community aspect. That's what I like about the podcast. That's what I like about streaming. I just like people hanging out and just goofing. So yeah, it's been fun.
Nice.
Well, that's
Very
what
cool.
I like about
Yeah.
you.
I thought it was that I really know how to dance. I thought that's what you
Well,
meant.
I don't, so he was not speaking about me in that way.
Oh, damn it.
Let's see. Well, I dropped back into Hearthstone because they did a refresh. I swear to God, there's got to be at least one other person who cares about CCG stuff. But they did there's a new expansion out.
That's a card collecting games for everybody who is listening at home.
There's a new expansion out that's the Dark Moon Fair, and they also redid their kind of like rewards track.
Oh,
which
that's what I've been
has
seeing a lot
been
about. I was wondering.
good for like me, the casual player, but I think it's been bad for people who actually play Hearthstone really hard. So kind of a mixed bag there. But they did have like achievements that give you points, which I like. And then I also dipped back into Minecraft Dungeons, which I don't know if anybody else played.
I haven't.
I started to play a
The
little
idea
bit.
intrigues me, especially like for my nephew.
Right, like a sort of like simplified, fun take on Diablo 3, but in the Minecraft universe, which is great. And on the one hand, I was excited because there's some like more levels you can go to if you're willing to buy the DLC. On the other hand, there hasn't really been a lot else done to it. And I was playing this game back in like July, August, maybe. Maybe even before then, and it's like hardly even changed. They could have added way more stuff. So I'm kind of sad that this hasn't seen a lot more production. Yeah, because it's just like it's a great platform, and I think it would really be big. And the way that you make your character class is just by combining items and chanting your items. There's no stuff that like happens to your character at all. It's all item enchants. So you're just like collecting things and trying to get them to interact, which is super fun. And then they never added any more to it. So it's kind of like, what the heck, guys? Come on.
That's lame.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But it's good for a run with, like me and Marianne play it before we go to bed. It's a very chill game.
Dude, that's awesome.
Chris, have you been playing chill games?
Nice.
Most of the games I have been playing have not been chill.
Lo-fi games to work / study too.
I've been playing a game that rhymes with Smarksmoles 2. Recently, pretty close to finishing that, but I'm not going to talk about that. Recently, I've also, like, obviously, someone, I think it was Dante Destiny on our Discord server mentioned that Pokemon cards are super valuable right now. They've gone up in price. So I've been kind of cataloging and taking a look at what I have. So looking to hopefully offload those and, make a little bit of cash.
Nice.
Get that.
Make some scratch.
Yeah, so from what
Quick, Allison, what's another name for money?
Bread.
Yeah. Cheese.
Get that bread. Lettuce. We could make a sandwich with this money.
At least you got grilled cheese. So yeah, I'm looking into doing that. It's been interesting kind of delving into that world though. There's a lot going on in the world of selling and buying Pokemon cards.
I think there was, in the world of buying and selling video game and like card paraphernalia, I think a Pokemon card was, no, it was a version of Pokemon that sold for like 40
There
grand.
was a Charizard,
And then
a first edition Charizard that sold for I think at least 200,000 or something like that recently.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think somebody bought a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers 3 for like $175,000.
Just some wild shit.
Logan
So,
Paul bought
Yeah.
a base booster box for $216,000 just recently.
Yeah.
To open.
So
on
I have a
this
first,
thing.
like the thing I'm hanging my hat on. I have a first edition Bulbasaur with the misprint of length. So that's what I'm trying to sell right now.
Oh, that one could be really good.
It's
What are you trying to get for it?
it's worth at least $100, I think, from what I've seen.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. So
See if I can find
Best
any
of luck.
Pokemon cards.
Let us know when you.
that's been my little side hustle. And then also Katie's brother-in-law is in town, so we've been playing some Magic. He's been crushing me. So that's been cool. Not super happy about that, so I'm gonna have to do some adjustments and fuck him up.
Yeah, the whole. Oh, I don't know how to transition, guys. Oh no, help.
Just say one of us looks sus, and then go talk about imposters.
Chris's Bulbasaur looks sus.
Yeah, Chris, your Bulbasaur does look sus. That length just seems off to me, to be honest.
It's the double length, man.
Speaking of which, the first topic today is imposters. That is, the question is like, why do some games make it and some games fake it? So we have these really great games that sort of dominate genres. And then we have a bunch of games that try to be those games. And And so we wanted to talk about why the winners win and why the rest of the group is, unceremoniously dispatched into space for no particular reason.
Yeah. Kind of standing in the background going, what the hell,
I didn't even do anything. I was in comms.
I was in... I swear I didn't vent, man.
So like the first one that we have on the list here is Among Us versus Town of Salem, and this was an Allison poll. So Allison, tell us about Town of Salem and how it relates to Among Us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of talk about two things, because Among Us is clearly the popular one, right? Like everybody knows it, loves it, plays it, super hype right now. And Town of Salem and Unfortunate Spaceman, I think, are both better games in different ways. So Town of Salem is not as similar, maybe, as Unfortunate Spaceman is. So I want to give both options before people trash me for picking a game that's a text space versus a game that's a non-text space where you actually interact. So Town of Salem is a game that is actually free to play on browser or through Steam, and it's kind of based on like the Werewolf or Mafia games, if you've ever played those. So people are either the whole group of people is assigned either a townsperson, which is the majority of people, mafia, which is a minority, there's only 3 of those, and then or a neutral character who has their own agenda to win the game. So the whole goal is you aim to eliminate the people who are against your win, so you get control of the village or town. So you need to, if you're townspeople, you need all the townspeople to survive. If you're mafia, you need the mafia people to survive. If you're mafia, you know who's mafia. If you're townspeople, you don't know. So that's where the game like Among Us comes in, where you have a time period. There's like a daytime, then there's a nighttime where people can do their abilities. So mafia can kill or whatever their other abilities are, depending on who they are. And so somebody dies over the night, and then you have to assess who did it based on asking people questions. And some of the townspeople can like see who visited other people at night, things like that. So it's like a big conversation piece like you have in Among Us, which feels very short and not fun to me.
Well, especially because it's timed. Like you have like 120 seconds to I guess in Town of Salem and like all those games like Werewolf or Mafia, you do have a timer for, it's like you could discuss for this amount of time before you have to pick somebody to,
but it's like
to
a lot longer. And you have time to really have those conversations with the people you're playing with of, hey, here's why I think so-and-so did this. And you have to judge, like, is it worth me telling people who I am in my role right now and put a target on my back with the mafia to do this? Like, there's so many factors to trying to get the right people hung. It is like, by the way, it's based on Salem, Massachusetts, hanging witches. Yeah. So you need to off the right people at the end of the day. And there's just so much more strategy into it. I find it a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if that depth that you find so valuable is part of why it hasn't seen sort of like the wide adoption that Among Us has seen, right? Like Among Us is like, you can play it on a phone, you can play it on a computer, you can play it on a toaster, drop in. What do? I don't know. Do the tasks. Let's see what happens.
Actually, you can play Town of Salem on a web-based browser. You don't even have to install the game. You can play it on a phone app. You can play it on just like Steam. So you can play it any of the ways there. So that's actually not a difference in them.
Interesting.
I think that's going to be a common theme, is that the accessibility portion might be the common factor, but at the same time, like if it's on your browser, like it's super accessible, but also people I think like apps. Yeah.
People like easy things, and sometimes going to a website and doing everything through that is less easy than.
It also has a phone app.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
Then I got fucking nothing there.
Then I don't know. Well, I also think that Among Us is more popular because it is shorter form factor. Like Town of Salem, like it could be a while. Like you could be sitting there for a while doing it. With Among Us, it could be, only a few minutes that you're in for one round, just because either like the killer kills everybody.
I mean, do you think then maybe it's the easy to get into but hard to master type of thing? And that
I
might
don't
be
even think
like
it's that hard to. I think it's just easier. I think, and in general, like there's
no
like,
barrier
UI,
to entry.
Yeah, there's no barrier to entry, and you could be good at it without spending hours and hours and hours.
That's my problem. Is like I don't know what I'm missing with Among Us. Right? It's so popular, so popular. So maybe there's something flawed with me versus the general population. I don't find it fun.
Is the lack of witches?
Maybe. Because it's like when I look at Unfortunate Spaceman versus Among Us, I like Unfortunate Spaceman more than I do Among Us, and those last a little longer. There feels like there's a little more. There's a little more oomph to like who did what and why. Like, I mean, you're not actually voting people, so you don't really have a conversation, but you do. You're talking to each other like, "What are you doing? Why are you here? What?" And you can have that longer conversation. It doesn't feel like you're rushed to make decisions and things like that. You get to really kind of assess things a little better. And the quality of that game is better just in general, in my opinion. So I just don't understand why Among Us is popular. There must be something wrong with me.
I think there's like, I actually wish in Among Us that or not in Among Us, in Unfortunate Spacemen, that there was an Among Us type like pause button. We need to talk.
There is.
Because I saw this. There is?
There is. Like literally, I think 10 seconds after the round starts, you can literally go back to the starting area and do that.
No, he's talking about in Unfortunate Spaceman.
Okay. Yeah,
sorry,
in Unfortunate Spaceman. I wish there was that, because that's the part of the game that really grabs my attention and makes it interesting, is like that argument part. And I don't get that in Unfortunate Spaceman. There's too much chaotic like running around doing this, doing that. But I am also not great at those like hiding person games. What do we call these games?
I don't know. I hate them too because I hate lying to people and I like friendship. So
I love them because I hate all of you and I secretly want to murder you. I'm sorry. Outrightly want to murder you.
I want co-op games for friendship, so fuck that shit.
But the thing is, I find it fun with friends a little bit, at least.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed playing it with you guys.
Because you're the bad guy every time.
Yeah, I play it with Frank and his friends, and I enjoy playing with them. But it's like, even in that atmosphere, like, I didn't know the people, so I felt a little reserved. And then when one of them was like, I saw you vent, and I was not venting, I was like, well, then you're it.
Excuse me.
Let's just vote you off. And then they didn't end up being it. And I felt like an asshole because I was like, but you said I vented. And they were like, oh, I thought you might have vented. And I was like, no, what's going on? Like, so I don't know. It's just like, I tried to play it just online by myself and I was miserable. And I thought there's no fun to this game if it's not with friends. So I guess I don't understand its place for popularity.
I can't really argue for Among Us's popularity either. It's like, I wonder if it was just picked up by the right streamers at the right time.
I guess.
And that's why.
I think
and it was like simple enough that it was just accessible to everyone.
It's not new. Like, it's been out for, I think, 2 years.
Yeah, for 2 years. That. And, like, Unfortunate Spaceman's been out for, what, like, longer than that? And Town of Salem's been out for 5
Town of
years.
Salem's, I think, the oldest
years.
One. Yeah. So it's like, and like the idea is not new.
Right.
It's just, it's interesting how it's taken hold.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's kind of happened a lot. Like, I mean, Team Fortress 2 has been pretty popular for a long time, but I feel like that genre didn't really get super popular until Overwatch happened.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
That's absolutely true. And it's interesting because that's another one of these. Like Team Fortress 2 was like the only one of that type of game for a very long time until Overwatch came along and was just like, blizzarded up the place. It was just like, guess what? Blizzard stuff.
And here's characters.
They had all
like you had assumed characters with personality, but here's actual personality and characters.
Right.
It makes you wonder how long until Blizzard makes an Among Us game that has like a characters and a world behind it and like all this other stuff going on.
That would be obnoxious.
Oh my god.
I was always hoping that with the resurgence of Overwatch, like we know my love-hate relationship with Overwatch.
Well, Blizzard in general.
With Blizzard in general. So I was always hopeful that like they just redo Team Fortress 2 with a Team Fortress 3, make it shiny and new, because there was so much about that game that was unmatched, and I would just like to play it again in a more modern format that other people are playing, because I'd play it right now, but like it's just not played as much, right? So
TF2?
Yeah. It's got its
played
cult following.
A lot. I'm pretty sure it's like in like good. It's generally in like the top 10 or 20 on Steam all the time.
Yeah, but do you guys play it?
I don't personally play it. I actually
that's
have
what I'm
some
saying. Like none of my friends play it. Why am I going to play it?
My nephew plays it.
If it was shiny and new, maybe people would play it again.
Shiny and chrome.
Chris, tell us about Rise of Nations, which strangely I've never heard of.
I'm not surprised. So Rise of Nations was actually developed by some of the guys that did Civ. But basically, it's if someone smashed together like Age of Empires with Civilization.
Which is funny because Age of Empires is very much like an RTS where your like units kind of evolve over time.
Yeah. So imagine like a Civilization game, but not turn-based.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, right? So it still has the RTS things, but like you still have to find those resources. You still have to kind of do the research that you need to do to get to those next levels. But it's basically that. It's basically Civilization, but without turns. It's turnless. Like it's constantly just going.
It's constantly moving and changing.
It's awesome.
That's interesting.
It came out in 2003.
Yeah, 2003. My God, was that like the Age of Empires era? Because I feel like I was playing Age of Empires.
So this was
too.
between I think Civ 3 and 4.
It looks really interesting. Why do you think it never took off? Like, is it just that it doesn't have the name?
I think that's the main thing. I mean, I and it's also kind of at the tail end of RTSs, I think, was the problem. RTSs were kind of, I mean, they were dominated by Warcraft 3 at that point, StarCraft. Age of Empires really didn't have a scene at that point. I mean, I feel like Age of Empires kind of has a scene now. I don't know if it had a scene then, but like Civ wasn't huge at that point either.
Right, and then you have WoW releasing in 2004, so like...
WoW's a completely different game, but it's just like, I think it was just like the culmination of great ideas at the wrong time.
It really was. It sounds like it was like the best amalgamation of all of those things you want from a game in a genre where people have been like, okay, I think we're done with this for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like we go through those cycles where like we've had all the battleground games for forever, and in 4 years people will be like, we're honestly done. We're done with battlegrounds. Let's move on to something else.
Yeah. No, I mean, and like RTSs, I think have at that point had jumped the shark, and like I remember like there were
a lot.
There were like really shitty Age of Empire clone like Star Wars games at that point.
There was. Ooh,
I can't remember either, but
called?
like it had a ton of units, but it was all just clones.
Empire at War.
No. Empire
Star
War
Wars
was not that.
No,
Empire
it was
War
another
is
one.
good.
Shit. Empire at War is good.
There's
Hold
an
on.
Age of Empire clone.
Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds Saga.
Oh my God. I remember seeing that and being like,
it's
oh, cool. And then playing a demo and being like, oh,
bad.
no.
Yeah. No, well, it's not even that it's bad. It's just that it's like a straight up reskin.
Yeah, it's just the same. It's just the same. And that was the problem with a lot of those, which is kind of why it's like Civilization now. Like all of these 4X games that exist, which we realize stands for, Chris, what do the 4Xs stand for? Expand. Explore.
Exterminate.
That's the last one.
Expand. None of these words start with X.
Explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. It's the exploit one that really gets me.
Exploit. I think it's 4X as in 4EX.
Yeah, but you don't spell it 4EX, you spell it 4X.
Or maybe it's like 4ECKS, like that terrible game and movie called X versus Sever. Do you remember that?
No, but that's incredibly obtuse and outstanding. I love it.
I'm sorry. That's a pull.
No, it was Rise of Nations was a really good game, and it never took off. I think Tyler introduced it to me. It was like super obscure, and like he let me borrow it like once I got a new computer and stuff. And that was super cool. It was I really enjoyed it.
I'm always disappointed that more people aren't into Deep Rock Galactic because I just think it's a better version of Left 4 Dead. So like these games that are like horde escape and horde management games, and Deep Rock Galactic is just such a good version of that.
Would you argue that it's better than Vermintide 2?
There's a lot of games that are like that 4 versus horde stuff, like the Vermintide things, Deep Rock Galactic. I think it's interesting that you picked Deep Rock Galactic because, in my opinion, that's probably like the least like Left 4 Dead of a lot of the
is,
ones,
but it isn't.
You know,
it actually
is.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Because it's like there are some times whenever there is nothing going on. and you can just get out until eventually something happens. Whereas I feel like every time I've played Left 4 Dead, I'm just panicked the whole time, like constantly in this state of, oh God, there's zombies, oh God.
That's actually one of the reasons I really like Deep Rock Galactic, because there are moments where there's like a pause and you're like, how do I get up there? And you have to like communicate with your buddies to figure out if you're going to take a rope or you're going to do platforms, or like who's going to go up there and why and when. And there's also a lot more varied gameplay than the Left 4 Dead games, and I think that's where Deep Rock Galactic also stands out versus Vermintide, for me at least, where there's one thing that you do in Vermintide and it's murder rats. And you do it a lot, and you kill all of them. And yeah, there's like variants in enemy type, and and also some like changes in location that are interesting that help to like keep it fresh, but not the same kind of variance in activity that Deep Rock Galactic has, and that's why I think that game really stands out. And it's a shame that more people don't play it.
Well, it is a little. It's on Game Pass right now, so you can play it through Xbox Game Pass if you have that.
I'm gonna have to revisit it because the premise of it is great.
I think
fucking dwarves doing dwarf stuff.
Yeah,
dwarves doing dwarf stuff in space.
Space
dwarves.
I'm into that.
But yeah, I mean, I think that, and there's been a lot of updates to it.
Right.
So now that's like fully released. We played it back when it was in alpha and like beta. So like we've been seeing it over this whole sort of release structure, and like things kept changing with it. So now it's kind of nice to have dwarven mining in space.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about like what makes the difference between, and from what I can tell, the main thing is accessibility between like a mainstream something that gets mainstream versus something that has depth and a level of investment from the player. Like if there's a learning curve, that can prevent mass.
For me, it's that there's something about the game that connects it to like wider societal interests at the time. Like Among Us is popular because it's like got these cute guys and they like play really well on Twitch and on like streaming and stuff like that. And when I think about Left 4 Dead, like zombies were a really big deal when Left 4 Dead was a thing, right? It's got like that, I don't know, that special sauce that's like current to the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue that every game that's become popular during quarantine, like Animal Crossing, Among Us, Fall Guys, like all of them are very simple
they are
games.
all, yeah, it's there's not a lot.
Anyone can go and pick them up and have a great time. And that's not a bad thing.
But that's
not a bad thing at all.
It's not a bad thing, but it also explains why the games are more popular. And while we do play some of the ones and things like, oh, why don't people play this? People should play this more because it's got more things, it's got more stuff, it's got these cool things. That is what's stopping people from playing it. It's just that there's so much to learn. And I know like right now I'm playing a lot of little games because I don't want to, aside from Call of Duty, which is just, Call of Duty shoot 'em man. But most of the stuff I'm playing is like short because I don't want to sit down and invest a lot of time right now. I'm just kind of, ain't nobody got time for that.
Allison, final words. What makes a game stand out from its competitors in any genre?
I don't know. I think that's why I wanted to have this conversation. As far, in my opinion, I think I most of the time differ from public popularity on a lot of things when it comes to games. So it's like, I don't get Among Us. I'm never going to get Among Us. It is popular. That's cool. I'm fine with it, but
Me too.
I'll just not really necessarily understand the full. I guess the ease is right on these games that you guys are kind of comparing. And that's what people will gravitate towards. But for me, I don't get it. I think there's better out there. Sorry, everyone.
I like how your answer to what makes a game stand out is y'all are picking the wrong games. That's what's wrong.
Like honestly,
days.
sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
Sorry.
It's like it's like take away from this. It's okay to be wrong.
It's okay. Allison is a big perpetuator of it's fine for everyone else to be wrong and her to be right. So
mashed potatoes, everyone.
Mashed potatoes.
All right.
Mashed potatoes.
If you want to hear more from Allison, stick with us. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, Ian here, just to plug our amazing 24-hour stream to benefit Extra Life. So if you don't know about this, Extra Life is a foundation that benefits the Children's Miracle Network, which is there to support kids who are hospitalized. And it's super important, especially during a time like this when we really have a medical crisis on our hands. And so this coming Friday, that's December 4th, from 8 p.m. to 8 p.m. the following day, Saturday, we're going to be doing a 24-hour stream. And during that stream, you can help out by donating to this website. Ready? Here it comes. It is bit.ly/GB, like Game Brew, Extra Life 20. That's bit.ly/GB Extra Life 20. And every single cent that gets donated to us goes directly to Extra Life to help out kids who are in hospital, and it's just a huge help, and especially this holiday season, we'd really love your support. So please do that. Please come join us. We're going to do a bunch of fun stuff. We'll host a live episode. Chris and I are doing a Dark Souls competition. Dan's got fun games for us to play. Allison's going to do Allison's thing. We all know you love her. So come check us out. Again, that's this Friday, 24-hour stream starting at 8 p.m. We'd love to see you there, and you can donate at bit.ly/GB Extra Life 20. Thanks. Here's the second half. Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Game Brew Podcast, episode 96. Kreese, how's your beer?
It's brown.
It's brown. Are you still excited about it? This is always the test, right? We like everything in the first half except for Miller.
Yeah.
In the second half is when the winners are really
I just finished one, so I need to open another one. No, it's good. It's like, it's not like the best one ever, but it is very good.
It's good. It's like a standard.
Yeah.
Like people talk about it being like one of the standards for brown ales. Whenever you're looking
I
at
really love the bottle art.
the bottle art.
Yeah, they've kind of got like a 60s vibe going on it.
We're not hashtag, but that's how I choose wines, just by looking.
I chose one today because of that. It was called Super Soft IPA. It's actually very good.
Pretty soft, aren't you, bud?
Fucking 10-ply, bud.
Softest birthday party ever.
10-ply. Season 10's coming
I've
soon.
had that one before, and that's really good.
But no, it's a very good beer. I've been enjoying it. I recommend it. It's much more recommended than that fucking garbage shit that we've been drinking.
Wow.
We don't say how we really feel on this podcast. My Brooklyn beer is doing okay. It's good. You know, it's got that dark sort of, oaky, lagery flavor. It's maltier.
Yeah,
I also feel
malty pass.
It's making me like a little sleepy and relaxed, which is kind of what I feel like winter lagers do.
Yeah.
Sometimes whenever I drink beer, I'm just like, I feel like, if I drink too much, I feel dizzy. But if like once you start drinking it puts you in like a certain mood. If you've ever seen the How I Met Your Mother episodes where they talk about, the different types of drunk there are.
Yeah.
Is it when Marshall is like walking down the hallway and he fights himself? Yeah. That episode's great.
Right. It's tequila drunk or something like that. This is a winter lager is a kind of beer. Whenever I drink it, I feel like I could just kind of sit down and take a nap.
Yeah.
No, it goes great with some covers or like a blanket.
Oh yeah. Just a nice,
like really,
blanket.
like it really should come with a blanket.
Actually, ironically enough, the Brooklyn Winter Lager has like a little on the can. It's got like a little, like the little thing because it's like you're wearing one of those jackets with the fur lining.
It's like an Uggs, but a beer bottle.
Yeah, it's a beer bug. It's a bugs. It's a beer bottle bugs.
Yeah, I really like my nut brown ale. It's not a nut brown ale; it's just a regular brown ale. But I do like brown ale. So one of the things that we also wanted to talk about this week, and we apologize in advance for talking about politics on your video game podcast, was that politics have kind of been invading video games lately, which is a really interesting phenomenon. We've seen Joe Biden get Animal Crossing signs. We've seen AOC play Among Us on Twitch.
Not just AOC.
Ilhan Omar.
And who else am I forgetting?
That was all that was on there. Just those
I
two.
think it was just Ilhan
Yeah.
O'Brien. Yeah.
But we've also seen things in like the social change arena and differences in protagonists in games. And we wanted to talk about how that's changing games for the better, for the worse, little column A, little column B. First, I want to go to talk about the Joe Biden Animal Crossing signs. It's kind of funny because like the people who vote for Joe Biden are not the people I see playing Animal Crossing.
I disagree.
I disagree with that. Who do you?
Who the
what
fuck's
do you
playing
mean-
Animal Crossing? Like, besides, okay, children, yes.
Well, yes, children.
People that cannot vote, okay.
But I guess what I meant was, I feel like these Joe Biden signs came out back when there were still other Democrats really fighting for the nomination, and most of the, and maybe that's why they went there, and most of the people who were playing video games, who I was talking to at the time, weren't most excited about Joe Biden. They were more excited about Bernie Sanders or Pete Buttigieg or whomever, right?
I mean,
but
I
they
think
weren't
that-
really Joe Biden people.
I mean, I think at a certain point, though, like, they became Joe Biden.
Sure,
people.
but I'm just saying, like, when the signs
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah. I think you might be right. But like, I think it's also, it wasn't a dumb idea.
I don't think it was a dumb idea. I think
I
it was
think it wasn't
actually a
dumb
really
at all. I
brilliant
think it was
idea.
actually super smart.
Especially because right now, I guess Animal Crossing is still pretty big. I don't know. I haven't played it in like 4 months
Same.
because I've been working constantly. So it's like I don't have time to pick this up and spend time making my town pretty. I could die.
The thing is, like, I'm kind of two minds about this. Like, it's nice that in Animal Crossing you can express some kind of political viewpoint, even if it's as simple as a Joe Biden sign. But I also like don't want to log into Rocket League and play against people with Trump cars. Like, I just don't. I just want to play Rocket League. You know what I mean?
And that's kind of so I was having a conversation about this with someone back when they came out, and I was torn because, you know, when this originally started, admittedly, I was not a Joe Biden girl. So I get what you're saying with that. I was at the time I was a Bernie girl, like, for sure.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a thing of like, oh, that's kind of cool that, you know, somebody in politics is taking this moment to sound off and kind of take an opportunity to talk to people that nobody really has ever directed conversation to. And I'll kind of talk about the two different things. So with the Animal Crossing signs, I felt the same way you did, where it was like, this is fine for me because I'm not upset that Joe Biden signs are in my face when I visit people's towns. But like, if I go visit people's towns and they were Trump signs, I wouldn't be happy, right? And that's my personal opinion on that. It would annoy me as much as maybe it should have been an opportunity for both, and Trump's campaign didn't take it clearly. If they were both there, it would bother me less. If just one was there and the other wasn't there, would it bother me if I was on the other side of the fence and I was playing that game? Probably. But I also think that it was kind of cool, and I don't even know if they thought it through that much when they took the deal to have Joe Biden stuff in there, or if maybe they were of the opinion that they were also on Team Biden. I don't know the backstory of it, which I'm kind of interested in, but like to take a stance and be like, this is important to us. I thought that was kind of cool because a lot of video games wouldn't do that also because of the backlash from people who would be like, I'm not playing that anymore.
So I have a couple thoughts. Like, so in Animal Crossing, like, you can just like create your own stuff and then put it up, and basically anyone on the internet can go get it.
Yeah, like you can make your flag or what have you.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if it was as much as like Nintendo sponsoring it as much as people just doing it. Like the
people,
Biden campaign just like throwing that shit out there.
Well, no,
Or like
they're actual items you could buy, though. That is the difference.
Yeah, it was like
Oh,
a
yeah?
different class
Okay.
of item.
And,
Okay.
and Biden like has his own town you can also visit that's like a promoted town and things like that.
Kind of awesome.
So no,
But-
this is a
that
legit
is kind
thing.
of awesome.
That's kind of awesome. So the other thing I was going to say is I think it's a reaction to how behind the times the Democratic Party was for the 2016 election. They did a
Yeah,
very
that's
classic
true.
election like thing
Push. Yeah.
for 2016, and then they got kind of wrecked because they weren't doing much anything with digital at all, like digital campaign at all.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what a lot of his support came from, was just doing stuff online. So it was good to see that they were doing kind of like smaller, like not campaigns, but like smaller grassroots type stuff in different areas.
And that's kind of one of the things that's kind of interesting about politics in general, kind of with video games, is there are ways for like telling you to kind of go out and vote. And it doesn't necessarily mean like telling you who to vote for, but like there's things to that people are saying. It's like, hey, this is an area where there's a lot of people. There's a lot of like 18 to 24-year-olds who play a lot of video games that don't go vote because they just don't do it. So another way like that, I know back in the 80s and 90s, the Rock the Vote campaign was huge through like MTV and stuff. So it's this election season, Tenacious D did a little TikTok thing with they did the time warp
from Rocky Horror,
the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they did that on it. It's really great as like the Rock the Vote campaign, which still exists, but it's a little bit less like vocal because there's no MTV. Kind of we go on the internet for everything now, so it's a little bit less about that. But I think it's good because this is reaching out to more of the people who actually need to, like they're the 18 to 25-year-olds are the ones who are shaping the future right now. We're in our 30s, so we're kind of in the mid range. We're important, but we're not as important as all these other like 18 to 24-year-olds are.
So yeah, I think there's kind of two pieces of this that we're overlapping discussion on. So I just want to kind of break it apart and make it a little more clear. Because for me, the whole idea of throwing in everyone's face, go out and vote, I think is important. I know it annoyed a lot of people just across social media and everything. That it was everywhere, right? Everything you logged into was like, hey, you should vote. And I do think that's super important. And the turnout that happened this year proves that there was a lot more getting people to the polls than there ever has been, right? So I think that's really cool. And I think one of the things is going into these things like gaming where people hadn't before and saying go vote, go vote, go vote in different ways. Not even necessarily saying go vote for someone. And that was done across a lot of different avenues. Like you said, like there was TikTok. Like, I don't know if anybody knows. I follow Mandy Patikin on TikTok, and Inigo Montoya. He has a TikTok and solely made it to get people to go vote, because he was so passionate about it. And his TikToks are hilarious because they're just like older people doing these things that they have no idea what they're doing. Their son's helping them do it, right? Anyway, like stuff like that is just like really, really great and important, I think. And I will always support that. I am a big go vote no matter what kind of human being. I think it's the most important part of our democratic process we could ever do. So that's awesome. That's great. And that's kind of what AOC did. Although we all know where AOC stands, when she was streaming Among Us, it was the message of go vote. Make sure you know you're registered. Make sure this is good for you. Make sure you know where you need to go. This is how, when it's too late for you to go and mail in your vote, you'll need to do it in person. Find out if you can do it early by going to these things. Like, that was her message the whole time. Like, I watched her stream. And Ilhan Omar, I had both of their streams up, and that was their message. Which, by the way, Ilhan Omar is so cute to watch stream because she gets real into the games. And she was kind of forgetting she was supposed to be doing this other thing. So it was like AOC was the whole time was like, go vote. It's so important, guys. And Ilhan was like, I want to make sure I win, guys. Like it was really interesting to watch both of them do. But that message is super important. The other thing is like the idea of bringing specific candidates into games. That was new. That was something that I had never seen before. I don't think has ever been done before. And I think it was a really bold moment on the companies themselves of saying, not only do I think it's important for you to vote, I think it's important for you to consider who you're voting for, which is something I would never have expected. And I thought that was really interesting. So I don't know if we'll see more of that in the future. And if we do, I'm not sure if I'm going to be happy about it. And I'm not sure if it would make me stop playing a game. I have to question that, right?
Honestly, I expect that we will see more. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if in 2024 we see a really big digital push in in video gaming because like 18 to 24 young people who are playing games, more older people are playing games. That's a thing. So
True.
And older people tend to vote more, so
Right.
that's a thing. I think there's a really big untapped voter pool in 18 to 24, and a lot of that is because they're not being reached out to in ways that they understand or are interested in, right? So we see a lot of political ads on TV from the hours of like 8 to 10 because that's where the voting population, that's when they are doing what they're doing. If it turns out that 24 to 34-year-olds are actually not watching TV as much. They're playing video games. And there is no reason why we won't see a deluge of money. And that's really what we're talking about, right? We're talking about money in video gaming. And people love money. And they love spending it on video games.
They do.
So I think there's a definite possibility that we'll see increased activity here. I wouldn't be... My call, here's my call. In 2024, whatever the most recent Call of Duty is, there will be someone streaming on there canvassing for Republican. Not that they'll be like saying go get out the vote, whatever. It'll be specifically canvassing for Republican. I'm just putting my money down there.
Well,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
I think that's a good call because I think the Republicans will learn from what the Democratic Party has done in this election and will want to jump on it. And I think a game that has a heavy influence on something like military or something they're known to proponent, or is that the right way to phrase that?
To be a proponent of, or to
there you
like,
go.
yeah.
English isn't my best subject, guys.
I don't know, but also it's like the outreach for that isn't huge also, because that's, talking like last time we talked about entry level for like games and stuff like that, where it's, I don't know, it sort of seems like in the social space, it's the kind of a negative social space sometimes. So I can't imagine somebody going there for positive outreach.
So, I mean, every election has a reaction to the other one. So this reaction from the left has been to push a lot more on digital, and to do some things that are more popular in the now, like doing streaming. Streaming was really kind of in its infancy in 2016, so like that really wasn't a thing. But like there are still a ton of people that are in the gaming community that are not focused on the same ideals that were being pushed by AOC or that group or doing the things like playing Animal Crossing or regardless.
You're just saying there's a wide degree of beliefs and political affiliations within the gaming community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not like this is all inclusive.
And I think if there's an open floor, somebody will take it, right?
Yeah, and so I think like the most popular open forum and like they were, the left was doing the most in touch thing at the time, So like 4 years from now we're going to see something that's different. And because in 2016 we saw the opposite. We saw that the right was doing the most in touch thing. And the left was the dinosaur. Yeah,
I also think that the right just tends to be better at operating political machinery in a more efficient way than the left does. Like, I feel like it's just true that the way that they run Congress is in a way that is like, believe in it, don't believe in it, whatever, like their ideals, hate their ideals, wherever you stand. I think there's an argument to be made that they're better at making Congress work for them than the Democrats are. And I think that at some point that is also going to translate into savvy for how they advertise and thus bringing it more into the video game mainstream. I think it's also more difficult for them and probably less likely for them, though, because they also generally tend to have an older voter base.
Right.
Which probably means that they aren't as interested in advertising in Animal Crossing. But if I don't know, I just feel like if there is a Republican leaning player base, it's in a first person shooter somewhere. That's just my guess.
All right.
Yeah. Speaking of first-person shooters, though, we've seen quite a few changes with how characters are working in games, too, which I think is really interesting. We've seen games that have a lot more diversity in them. So we're seeing more people of color. We're seeing more non-binary people. We're seeing a lot more female representation among playable protagonists. And this has had like a really, like a very contentious rollout, which just blows my mind. When you see people on the internet like, why do all the player characters have to be females now? And you're like, really? This is what you want to complain about? This is the ground you want to die on, pal?
I mean, yeah, we're used to the moody white male protagonist for everything. You know, we get Nathan Drake is in basically everything for forever until like 2 years ago. So everyone's like, what's going on?
I've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to talk about this much. I've hosted some podcasts about this with some awesome people.
Yeah.
But
yes.
A lot of it just has to do with like the mirage of equality bringing down the majority somehow, which isn't what happens. It just brings up the minorities in these areas. So it's something that really irritates me, obviously, as it does all of you, when people are upset that they're not represented in every single game they see suddenly because there's representation for other groups. And that's
right. It's not a set pool.
Right.
It's not like
this isn't built to hurt you and not like you guys. You know what I mean? Like what I'm saying.
Yeah, no.
Just because you guys are white dudes. That's not what I'm trying to say.
This is why I cry myself to sleep every night.
It's the you who has an issue with it every time it comes up. It's there's nothing wrong with representing a character who can love people other than someone of the opposite sex. And that's a choice now in games. It normalizes it. And once we get to the normal, then it's an equal playing field, and that's what we need.
And I'm interested in, and this is another thing, like, I think part of it is that we live, I don't know if I want to go here. I might cut this. What's interesting about that is that when you find out, like when we found out that 76 or even Tracer was gay, there is this huge, what you see on the internet is this huge backlash. And this is in a game with incredible diversity. And yet what you get from this, like, people have been okay with gay people since a long time. Like, this isn't a new thing. I feel
people
like it's
also have not been okay with gay people for a long time.
Well, I think that's true, but I think like when you poll the majority of Americans, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but like 75% are probably like, hey, yeah, like I don't really care. People make their own choices.
I think that number's too high.
I think that's high. I think that you're overestimating. There are people that say that non-religious people start quoting the Bible about how marriage is between a man and a woman without even thinking about what section of the Bible that is in. I'm pretty sure it's not in any of them.
It's not.
I would like you to quote. I would like you to check that before you put that in the podcast. But I'm pretty sure it's not.
Version of which Bible you're discussing?
Listen, I only follow the Bible of the flying spaghetti monster, and that.
Well, I just like, to me, what it says is that like gaming is not this. Like, I tend to think of gaming. My like, when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, people who game probably are like younger people. More younger people are not against people who are gay or non-binary. Why is there such a strong reaction then in the gaming community to a gay character? And the reason has to be that the estimation that gaming is more accepting of anybody who isn't straight is less than I think it is. Or
people who feel just like wildly uncomfortable playing that character, which is because it hasn't been thought of as a normal thing or an okay thing.
Interesting. You think it's about like people role play when they play video games, and so they can no longer put themselves into this character.
I mean, fucking Ian plays a female character all the time.
I think there's a section...
But also you're playing that third-party person so you can see that ass.
There's a section of a large section of gamers out there who feel uncomfortable being put into a character that they aren't. And whether that be a woman or somebody who's fluid or has different ideas about who they want to, bash. Smash. Bash, smash. That's the word I wanted.
Crash.
Have relations with.
Flash?
Pretty brash.
there's some people who just can't do that and they freak out, especially when it's a game that they were excited to play originally. So I'm taking, like, we discussed Overwatch and we discussed 76 in the Gamers of the Game Brew episode. And I think
like, are you gonna yeah, like, sorry.
No, you're good.
Ahead.
And I think a lot of it is just that, like, they liked this character, they identified with this character, and then suddenly this character to them was different from them and they weren't okay with it.
Well, what's interesting is that was like the most Call of Duty character of all.
Right. And
like, because he played, like, his buttons were Call of Duty. Like,
Right.
he had a sprint, he had, a right click grenade, like, he had his buttons were Call of Duty. And so, like, the Call of Duty bro going into Overwatch for the first time, that was probably his first character.
Right. And it's that idea, which I thought was so cool, and in that moment of taking what's considered one of the more bro-y, manly characters and breaking that apart and making him something people may not have expected him to be. But that is something that happens, and that's an honest truth of life. So
Well, right.
Awesome.
It's trying to me, it was a really cool moment of like making being gay broy and manly, right? Like grouping these things together in a way that's like, whoa, like, look how cool this is.
Right.
76 is a hard motherfucker. Like,
yeah.
I mean, in more ways than one, am I right?
Oh my god.
no, but, like, you know what I mean? Like,
You guys, oh my god.
like
That's cut that out. Good god.
that guy's, he goes hard. Not in that way.
But
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've been playing Hades recently, so there's some thirstiness that happens from playing Hades too.
and I've heard similar complaints from people with Hades when they weren't expecting that. When it's such a big piece of that lore, to be honest, and that time period, it's just normal in the lore of it. So it's strange to see that the backlash continues, but as it becomes, and I think we're all seeing it in AAA games, the more and more this becomes a normal piece of day-to-day life, the less and less we're going to hear the outrage, and the more and more it will just be a part of gaming, which I think is very important.
So
I think in Black Ops, like I was saying before, whenever you can click your character, I think you can choose male, female, or non-binary.
Not to mention the new Call of Duty is literally called Black Ops. Like, how great is that? I'm kidding. That's a joke.
There have been 4 of them. This is like the 5th one, man. That's an old joke at this point. But no, it's interesting because since you're playing a character, you can identify as yourself as a boy or a girl. It's more than just like Pokemon characters.
Yeah, but even that is like, it's a little old school to just have a boy and a girl. Like, let's get on the non-binaries. Okay, Chris, what were you gonna say?
So I think it's interesting because, like, we have all these opinions, and like a lot of game companies are kind of I don't know if complying is the right word, but like doing the things that we want them to, like making them characters non-binary and making it so there's multiple versions of things. Like, so like I think in the new Assassin's Creed you can be male or female, doesn't matter for the story at all. I think they did that with Odyssey as well. So like,
well, Odyssey had some issues, but go on.
So like, let's say that you like, obviously this is things that we agree with as a whole.
The Game Brew, yes.
How do you feel about that? Like, obviously we agree with that, and like we wanted that to continue. But like, what if you were a person that didn't agree with that?
Well, then I need to fix my human rights issues.
You know what I mean? Like that's the argument, I think, of a lot of people is like, well, I have my own opinions.
But that's human rights aren't opinions.
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Devil's advocate.
So
I
that's
hate
my
it.
statement.
But like, I'm just saying, like, what if you don't have these opinions?
I appreciate you playing devil's advocate, Chris. Let me dive in here and just say, the reason game companies, for the most part, are doing this is not because they want to take some moral stand. I don't believe that. I'm not naive enough to think that. They're doing it because they want to make money. And the larger their adoption base, the more people who are on getting into it, the more money they make. So when they appeal to an international audience because they have people of color, or when they appeal to gamers who are gay.
LGBTQ plus.
Because they're right. They're making this a bigger tent, right? And so therefore they can make more money. So I think that's probably where most of it comes from, and I want to be careful not to like give them too much credit because really they're following. But I think the fact that they're following means that their research shows that more people like the games that way. And I think that's promising.
I would counterpoint with when this started, that wasn't the case. So there is something to be said for the gaming companies who did it first and did it loudest, because it actually was a big negative on their finances. And I think a lot of them probably knew that coming in. For instance, Blizzard, they hired a writer who said, we need inclusivity.
Right.
And the lack of it is upsetting. And it was something that was discussed and taken as a stance. And I don't think it was positive for them in the beginning. Now, the fact that the fact that companies are jumping on board now, I think they are seeing the positive impact financially for those things now that things have settled down, or that they have brought more inclusive gamers in.
Is that why Sylvanas is Queen of the Mary Sues?
And I would also argue that a lot of the purchasing power countries don't want that. So I would disagree with you on a couple pieces on that. Like China, for instance, huge gaming purchasing power. They don't want POC. They don't want these LGBTQ plus pieces in it. Like, those aren't positives for their wallet as far as buying there in general.
It's a good counterpoint.
There was
sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Just a side note. There was a Twitter post that somebody posted earlier about there's a bunch of times whenever has anyone else played, as I've said over and over again, has anyone else played any of the Yakuza games aside from me? God damn it.
I have one now, though, because one was in the Humble Bundle. Hashtag bit.ly/GameBrew.
Yes. But you can also play, if you have Game Pass, you can play Yakuza Kiwami 2, and Yakuza
played.
0.
I realized I raised my hand.
Thank you. But there's Kazuma Kiryu, who is like the protagonist for all these games, has so many really like just very wholesome standpoints about like, why should it matter if he wants to wear a dress? He can wear a dress if he wants to. It's not your place to judge whether or not he wants to. And it's so funny because he's like this really
super masculine.
He's this
uber
really,
masculine,
like masculine, kicks so much ass, believes in in duty, and it's like the Japanese mafia. So it's interesting to like see games like that where it's still, they're just like, yeah, it's
like those little
positivity.
Tiny nuggets of normalcy, which I think is so important to the big broad stroke of things. So
yes.
Well, here's to more strokes of normalcy in gaming. That's going to be it for us in the second half. If you have something to say about politics in gaming, or you have a game that feels like an imposter among other pretenders, let us know by hitting us up on the social medias at The Game Brew, where you can find us. You can also join our Discord at bit.ly/discobrew. Come hang. It's a great community, no matter who you are. And that's going to be it for us.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not going to be it, because...
Important. Everybody on December 4th.
Yeah.
On December...
Rock your
shut
body.
Up. That's as much... Shut up. That's as much as we can do. You can't do
on
anymore.
a 24-hour stream. Okay, there you go. It's a different tune.
Yes. So on December 4th from 8 p.m. until December 5th, 8 p.m., we will be streaming
Total War Warhammer 2 DLC. It's going to be new.
Yeah, for 24 hours. No. We're gonna be streaming a bunch of stuff. We're gonna be doing a bunch of silly things. There's hot sauce involved.
Ian and I are gonna fight via Dark Souls somehow.
Yeah, we're gonna see who's the Dark Souls master.
Who's gonna be the
Allison are
Soulsiest.
gonna go on a wonderful date. There's a lot of stuff involved.
We're gonna do a live episode.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna do a live episode.
But you know what? It's all for the children.
Yeah,
it's all for the kids.
It is.
And so we're gonna have some links come out this week. The link is bit.ly/GBExtraLife20. And you can go there and you can start donating right now if you want. During the actual stream, you can donate. There'll be some things you'll be able to make us do. There'll be some things that we'll be playing.
Chris is going to crush Ian. It's going to be great.
We'll
Chris is going to
see,
crush
man.
Ian
We'll
at a bunch of
see.
stuff.
I'm gonna
But
crush
last
you
year,
like I'm wearing full Havel set with a dragon tooth.
You can't even get Havel's set. You
I'll bring it. Okay.
getting soft.
so last year for Extra Life, we raised just over $1,000. I think it was like $1,065 for kids,
Which is
for the
amazing.
St. Jude's.
It was
for the
for
St. Jude Children's
Hopkins,
Hospital,
I think.
and our goal was only 500, so we smashed it. So this year our goal is gonna go higher. We are gonna try and raise that 1,000 or more. So if you want to join in and like come hang out with us, we're gonna be there for 24 hours. If you want to donate, please do. It's for the kids. Nothing goes to us. It all goes to the kids. It's really important, especially right now, just because everybody's hurting for this stuff. So please tune in for that, and please donate. I will be. I know everybody else will be too.
Okay, thanks. Join us for that on December 4th. We're looking forward to it. And say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Night,
night,
everybody.
everybody.
Black Lives Matter.
Aw.
All right. So my dad was listening to the most recent podcast, and he was just like, I don't understand some of these
Oh,
games.
I saw that.
guys."
I saw that on
that.
Facebook.
I just want to go around the horn, and you have to say one of the gaming abbreviations you know and what it stands for.
FPS, first person shooter.
MMORPG, mass multiplayer online role playing game.
GGWP, good game, well played. Does that one count? Is that a gaming term?
Yeah, MOBA, MOBA, multiplayer online battle arena.
Massively online battle arena.
No,
Or is it multiplayer?
right, multiplayer.
You're right. CCG, collective card game.
F2P, free to play.
Nice.
FPS, first person shooter,
Or frames per second.
or frames per second.
Yep, that is famous for PvP, player versus player.
GOG, good old games.
Yep, they sell games. PvE, player versus everyone. That's playing against not other people.
Or
but
enemy.
Like,
I thought it was playing versus enemies.
Yeah. Fuck me.
PvP is player, PvE is enemy, like game enemy rather than a human being, I think. See, we don't even know. Why we're not experts, guys.
Yeah, so a POV could either be FPS or TPS. It could be an RTS game with a TDV.
It sounds like
Top-down
honestly,
view.
every single thing in that aside from game sounded like some kind of like genetic or
Or sexually
Dude,
transmitted
you got
disease.
TDV right now? It's gross.
Yeah, I got the TDV, man.
I got it
It's
from
so
my
bad.
girlfriend.
POV.
I'm sorry.
It is so bad.
Gross.